In some ways, the structure of academic writing is one of the easiest things to try to get right, to manage to have something that you can work to which will help you with writing in an academic style. There is not necessarily a hard and fast rule for academic writing. You may notice when you're reading pieces of work written by others that they don't always follow these rules exactly. However, this is a good way of starting off your work, and for most undergraduate work, this is a really useful structure to use. And it's pretty simple. It's one which you may well have been taught in high school, and it's a structure which is based on an introduction, several body paragraphs which lay out the support for your argument, and a conclusion. And it's that simple in some ways. I'm going to talk through what each of those sections might look like. But if you approach your writing with this kind of model in mind of an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion, then that's a really good start to well-structured academic writing. The introduction is where you lead off your essay as far as the reader is concerned. And so it's in some ways a really important facet of your writing. It's also, once you understand it, one of the simplest spaces, and it's one which actually may well help you with understanding what it is that you're writing. So the introduction can be seen as doing roughly 4 things. It's going to position what you're writing about. So giving an idea of the scope or the field that you are writing in. It will state your argument. And this is something which people sometimes avoid or don't understand. And I think that it's something which can really help your work. Your introduction should clearly say, this is what my essay is arguing. There is no such thing as a spoiler in an academic argument. If your argument, your evidence is going to build to a particular point, tell me right at the start what that point is, what it is that you are arguing, what your essay is saying. I should be able to read your introduction and understand where your conclusion is going to be drawn. Your introduction should explain how you're going to support your argument. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to try and cover the entire essay in the introduction, but I should understand if there are particular methods or methodologies that you are going to use, what these are, whether you're approaching this from a textual analysis perspective, or a discourse analysis, or a visual analysis, or whether you've conducted a survey. The introduction should lay out how it is you are supporting your argument. You will go into depth later in the essay with exactly how you did this and showing the elements of analysis you've done. But the introduction should make it clear what techniques you are using. It should also make clear, if you're using a case study, what that case study is. And lastly, the introduction should briefly explain why it matters. It should explain why this case study and this concept work together. It should explain why it's important to understand this particular element that you're arguing. It should show some understanding of how your argument sits within the broader cultural sphere. When it comes to the actual essay, your body paragraphs will make up the great majority of your essay. And the longer the essay is, then the more body paragraphs there will be to it. And because of this, body paragraphs do various different sorts of work. There's not one singular type of body paragraph. So some of the things that body paragraphs might do is that they might describe the existing academic research. And we'd usually call this a literature review. And what we mean by that is that you do research of the books and the journal articles that have been written about the particular concept and topic that you're writing about, and you present the research which exists out there. You show that you understand it, and more than that, it's not just listing it out, you explain it, and you show your understanding of it, and you show why it connects to your argument, how this relates to what you're talking about. If you don't see a relationship to your argument, then it raises the question of, why are you including it? What purpose is it serving? It's important to understand how the work which has come before connects to your argument. Something else that body paragraphs can do is that they will be where you analyze and critically engage with the academic research. So that's where you not just present it, not just show your understanding of it, but also work with it in relationship to other academic research. So you might present a concept definition from two different scholars, which perhaps comes at something a different way, and highlight which elements of these definitions are most relevant or useful to the work that you're doing, showing that you understand how other people's work builds on the work which has come before them. And lastly, your body paragraphs are where you address and analyze any primary research contribution of your own. So again, this might be where you are doing your textual analysis. This might be where you're doing your visual analysis or discourse analysis, where you are drawing on your case study, the body of research which you are looking at, and drawing conclusions from. What's important about body paragraphs is that every paragraph should make one point. So think about, how do I describe what this paragraph is about? And if you're starting to list things out, then potentially you've put too many ideas into one paragraph. Your paragraph should introduce the main point of the paragraph, should explain the main point of the paragraph, should support the main point of the paragraph, and then should tie it to your argument. Which leads you to the next thing, which is that every paragraph should help to advance your argument. Even if you're describing the existing academic research, it should be clear how or why that connects to your argument. If you get to the end of a paragraph and you cannot explain how that connects to the argument that you're making, then at that stage you've wasted those words in that paragraph, because they are not helping to advance your point. So you need to think really carefully about what work that paragraph is doing. What is the point of that paragraph? How does it help to advance your argument? And you need to make sure that that is clear to your reader. Paragraphs are something which some students really struggle with knowing when to make something a paragraph. And sometimes we'll see paragraphs that are far too long, that are pages long, and sometimes we'll see paragraphs that are only 2 sentences long. And it's unlikely that either of those are actually the best way of expressing the ideas that you're trying to express. The conclusion is the final part of your academic essay structure. And people sometimes get a little bit confused about what to do in the conclusion, because they sort of feel like if they've done their job properly in the essay, they've already explained the argument and made all the points to support the argument. So there are a couple of different things that a conclusion can do. It should bring the points of the body paragraphs together. You've been building and structuring an argument as you've gone through. And as I explained, every paragraph should make a single point. The conclusion is where you can draw these together. The conclusion is also where you demonstrate how the argument has been supported. Although you will have been saying throughout the essay how the points you are making connect to the argument, the conclusion is where you can draw that together and express that clearly and concisely. Something else that a conclusion can do as well, especially in a longer form essay, is that it can suggest questions that have been left unanswered. So it may be that in narrowing the scope and the focus for your essay, there were other questions which were raised, but which your essay did not have the breadth to be able to go into. So it may be that your conclusion is where you can indicate the potentials for further research that your research have created. It may be that in answering your own research question, you've raised more questions. And the conclusion is a space where you might explain those. You don't have to, but that is one other thing that a conclusion can do. It brings the points of the essay together. It shows how your argument has been supported. And if you like, and if it's relevant, it might suggest directions that future research might take your research in.